Okay, I guess it kind of skipped that a little bit, but that's okay too. All right. Listen, I know some of y'all aren't in here yet, and that's okay too. But I want to talk about a few things this evening. One of them that's very, very interesting, and I don't know if you've heard about this yet or not, but it's the case about Chelsea. Hang on, let me see how you pronounce her last name. Chelsea Dupron. I don't know if you've heard of her or not, but my God, when I found out about this, it was just shocking. I mean, why? Why does this shit keep happening? Yeah, I'll say a cuss word. It's late enough I can say cuss words. But anyway, we're going to talk about that. But we're also going to talk about Julie Rowe and Chad Daybell some more. Because I don't know. Hang on. Let me put this plug over here where it goes. Hang on a second. There we go. Get a little plug in here. Now, I don't know if you ever go to Reddit very often, but I found this whole string of something from somebody who actually knows Julie Rowe. And so she put her thoughts out here. Now, it's a pretty long post, but we're going to talk about it anyway. So I'm going to kind of read it to you so you'll kind of know what I'm talking about, all right? So it says, warning, long post. Also, apologies in advance for the LDS church jargon and terminology, okay? Yeah, because, some of us really can't pronounce it right all the time because we're not part of that. But anyway, this person says, I have a unique perspective that I thought maybe some of the subs would find interesting. I am LDS, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with the church but are just interested in this case, just know that life as members of our church can be a very small world, even across state lines. So I personally knew Julie Rowe when she lived in Arizona, and I now live in Rexburg, and my husband and his family are local, so I have a lot of personal connections to Chad and his kids, and it's kind of interesting. Listen carefully. That said, here's my experience with these individuals. First, Julie Rowe. I was in her ward in Oro Valley, which is northern suburb of Tucson, Arizona, in 2011 and 2012. She lived in our neighborhood and was my sister's activity days leader. I was a senior in high school and babysat her kids 2 to 3 times. My mom was nice to her because my mom is the sweetest and felt bad for Julie. One day she asked my mom to go on a walk with her, and she did. On the walk, Julie started talking to my mom about her out-of-body experiences and said a few things that made my mom uncomfortable. My mom distanced herself from Julie pretty immediately. Soon thereafter, Julie asked Bishforic. I always say this word wrong. I'm so sorry. It's hang on. Ooh, I lost my little place. Oh no. The Bishporic. Just the bishopric. I think it's bishopric. I'm gonna say that. I think that's how you say it. To not speak in church, comment in classes, or give prayers anymore because she had begun saying some wacko stuff in testimony. In the meetings and the comments in class. Everyone kind of started noticing how weird she was after that. Around that time was the last time I babysat her kids. She dropped them off at my house, and when she came to pick them up, I distinctly remember this strange encounter that we had. She was talking to me about college because I had recently got accepted to BYU in Idaho and would be moving there in the fall. She went on a rant with my mom, sister, and I, telling us how one day we would all need to move to Rexburg because it would be protected. She was talking so crazy and we couldn't get out of the conversation. So I called her home phone with my cell phone to have an excuse for her to leave. Shortly after that, her family and her disappeared. It was like overnight they moved and the house was empty. It was super weird. Fast forward a few years, and I meet my husband, who is from the area, but also lived in Springfield as a kid. Chad is friends with his dad and was in the process of helping him publish a book about mental health when all this came out. Tammy worked as the librarian in my little brother-in-law's elementary school. Emma even went on a double date with me and my family friend so she goes, Emma even went on a double date with me and a family friend on the night I got engaged and was literally there. And some of our so Emma's in some of her pictures. All right. When all of this came out, I realized I lived down the street from Lori and their townhouses. Also, Rob Wood was my bishop for about 2 years before he took the case. And don't quote me, but I believe was released as a bishop because of it. That would make sense, right? It'd be too close. Okay. Whew. I know this is a lot, but I just have a lot of strange connections. In this case, it's just hit so close to home for me. Way too close for comfort. And I have a theory. Okay, now this is this person's theory. And you got to remember, she knows Chad Daybell. She knows Julie Rowe. She's been around them. I mean, it's not like they're just strangers and she's just saying this because she wants to. And she really has, good information about this. The little computer was just sliding off. Anyway. So her theory is that Julie Rowe and Chad Daybell were going to be the it couple in Chad's mind originally. See, that goes back to me saying that originally I thought that Julie Rowe was the original Lori. But remember, there was also a person named Lisa that we found out about. Her name was not Lisa. They just called her Lisa because they didn't want to give her a real name. All right. So we talked about that last time. But so Lisa was really the first one, but we didn't know about that, right? And so this person is here, she's giving this theory, but she didn't know this other person whose name is really not Lisa, but Lisa existed, all right? So here we go. My theory is that Julie Rowe and Chad were going to be the it couple in Chad's mind originally. I see Chad as a guy who grew up kind of a loser, always wanting attention and the limelight, but being boring and not the greatest looking guy. He ended up with a woman like Tammy who has many amazing qualities, but who wasn't necessarily the beautiful blonde bombshell, the type that he saw Lori as. Now listen, we love Tammy Daybell, and I don't want anybody to say anything negative about her, ever. Bless her heart and soul, she did not deserve what she got, and she damn sure did not deserve to be talked about the way she is now by Lori. Saying, oh, she's busy. Oh, God, that makes me, the whole thing with that makes me sick, super sick. But anyway, keep going with this. So, he always secretly wanted attention and praise, which is why I think he was so tempted by manipulating other women to get what he wanted. Julie Rowe was perfect for that. Julie already had the theology and following, and Chad was both looking for women to manipulate and had his own religious weirdness as well. True. We knew that happened, right? Here's why I think they were flirting with an affair before he met Lori. I was talking to my husband's family member who knows the Daybells well. We were just casually talking about the story, and I told above about Julie Rowe, how she knew her, when she lived in Arizona. She told me that she and her husband went to a farm of a friend of theirs. So she went out to this farm. And when they got there, it was later in the evening, and Chad and Julie were alone walking around the farm property very close. They ended up running into each other and having to speak, and Chad seemed very uncomfortable. His family member is in Chad's ward, so they knew he was married, etc. All right? He introduced the woman as Julie Rowe. They quickly got in Chad's car and drove away. The family member talked later to the owner of the farm, and she said that they had been there for a while just looking at the area, to keep the animals or whatever. That experience plus the claims that Julie made, yes, I think Chad was trying to manipulate her in the beginning, and it didn't work out. He probably assaulted her, which is terrible. And yes, we heard about that too. He did assault her. She said so. Well, she said she was assaulted. All right. He probably, okay, here we go, which is terrible. But she was putting herself with him alone way too much for a married woman. And I think she got spooked and distanced herself. Just a theory. Anyway, I know this was extremely long, and I just had to dump all this somewhere. And this was the right audience. I have so many more thoughts on this case that I'd love to discuss too. And I have even more connections to this case that I have shared here. But out of concern for privacy, I omitted them. Please feel free to ask any questions. And so the people began to ask questions. Kind of interesting here. So one of the first questions was but here's the biggest question. Do you think Emma and the other children would have gotten themselves tangled up in all this crazy theological conspiracy? Or they just sticking with him like blood is thicker than water kind of a deal? All right, so they're asking about his kids. What did she think? And then another one goes, and this is exactly how I'm reading is exactly how they're written. Dude, honestly, none of us locals have any idea. We can't figure them out. I personally believe that Emma and Garth are the two that are more indoctrinated, if you want to call it that. Obviously, we didn't grow up in their household, so I'm only speculating here, but it comes across to me like they're just going along with what their dad says because he has taught them that he is always right, all right, and their whole lives, and I have a feeling that they believe he is a visionary as well. So it's very plausible that he would tell them and that he was being framed, or that all of this will come to light eventually, and they are sticking behind him for that. Not sure, but that's just what it seems like. All right. Here's the next one. I'm really concerned about what testifying for their dad is going to do to these kids, psychologically and socially. I mean, the trauma of this whole situation must be so hard to live with day by day. But I wonder what happens to them in their jobs and community if they're openly supportive of their dad on the stand, or even if they lie on his behalf. And the poor kids' children, what must life be like for those little ones? Yikes. And that's true. It is a yikes. Then the lady goes, thank you for sharing. This is the impression I've gotten from listening to long interviews with Lauren from Hidden True Crime. All right. So she talks about Hidden True Crime, which we love. We love Lauren and Hidden True Crime because she always has all the best on, Lori and Chad and the whole situation. I was so glad she was able to be there. Anyway, she goes, Lauren. Okay. So with Lauren True Crime, Nate Eaton with East Idaho News, and the others have done with the main players, and from evidence in the form of police interviews, cam footage, text, and podcasts, etc. I've heard accounts, maybe from Heather Daybell, and that's another person who knows a lot about this case, and she's given a lot of good information. I mean, I like to listen to her too, because she was right there. She knows these people, right? So she goes, she's heard from maybe Heather Daybell of his mission work. He had the gift of gab and stood out for being good with people. I think he craved importance. When he realized how much attention he could get from these fringe ideas, he latched onto them and built on them. Pretty sure that's what happened. Chad didn't take Tammy to the books or the speaking gigs and told multiple women that they were married to him in past life. So right here, she's telling us that she knows for a fact that he told this to many women. So any woman that came to that desk to help him sell books or talk to him, he would try this, right? Because there were so many Loris before Lori, right? So he stole his, and we knew about this too, and right here they're talking about it as well. He stole his near-death experience ideas from Julie and another woman he interviewed about her near-death experience for a book. ABOW folks were essentially splintering off from the main church, and Chad was a leader developing a following who saw him as having serious spiritual gifts. People who believed him were light. People who did not were dark. So he was into the light and dark way before the Lori, right? It said how many people participated and were aware to some degree of this thinking and did nothing. Or worse, covered it up. Heather Daybell went to church leadership and was treated like a scold by his family and of us for it. She was 100% correct to be concerned, and yes, ma'am, she was. I hope the folks in the church, especially those attracted to fringe ideas, learn from the tendency to be The tendency to be distrustful of LE. These comes from the prophecy and the obsessed over end times, all contributed. Too many folks need to feel special and use kooky beliefs to pretend they are. Play pretend in this case ended 4 lives. Amen. Absolutely 100%. I believe that. The next one says, these people are pretty blunt. They're saying exactly what they mean, and they mean what they say. I tend to agree with these people, The next one says, I personally think Chad is jealous of Matt and wanted a wife who could rival Heather. Okay, we've heard that before too, and I agree with that as well to some extent, right? Everything else you've written tracks for me. Kind of crazy how many connections you have, but it's definitely possible that the world can shrink when you're a Mormon. I know people who were in the wards with Lori back when she was Lori Ryan. Now, here's a little funny story. I moved to Austin in 2005, and my husband worked for a bank. He still does, but anyway, we have a family friend who's also a banker, who used to work with Charles Vallow. When they lived in Austin, he worked with Charles Vallow. It's a small world out there, right? In fact, that guy still handles a lot of the money funds that the family has. Anyway, that's about that. So then she goes, your mom is, okay, now they're talking about the lady who first gave us her story. Your mom is very wise. Everything you said has been made clear through this case and the trials. It is clear to see who Chad is and who Julie Rowe is. Both look for vulnerable targets to boost their fragile egos. They are no different than any other predator, really. I agree with that. They are predators 100%. All right. They just use spirituality. They just use spirituality as their trap. Remember, Chad's brother-in-law stated on the stand that Chad told him his children are good at keeping secrets. Right. Okay. So you got to wonder, what do those children really know? That's what I want to know. Right. All right. Then she goes, they are very much indoctrinated or brainwashed as well. Emma, however, comes across loud and clear as having particularly inherited Chad's callous, malevolent nature. None of these people should be raising children. Now, that's harsh. That's a harsh thing to say, isn't it? Now, remember, I'm not saying these things. I'm reading to you a string of things that's about these two on this Reddit, which is it's very interesting, right? So here it goes. The next one is, my big question is, how did both Chad and Lori have temple recommends, and from whom? By the time they were having the affair, both had already displayed significant issues. Chad talking about end times, and Lori multiple divorces in their lives. And how the heck did they have temple recommends at this point? Yeah, that's a good question. All right. Okay. Then the next one says, very interesting. Thank you for sharing. This sounds very accurate as to what probably led up to this. I remember Heather Daybell being interviewed and talking about when Chad and Julie, along with Tammy and the kids, came to her home, her and Matt's place, and toured the property because they thought Heather and Matt's property would become a tent city when the big earthquake hit, right? Or whatever these end time stories are. Heather said Chad and Julie were constantly close to each other, like they were flirty. She said Chad and Julie walked together while Tammy followed behind. It just sounded very awkward for Tammy and the kids. Absolutely. But I'm gonna tell y'all something. Now, I'm reading Chad Daybell's crappy books. And the one thing about it is the earthquake. In these books, it's always talking about the earthquake, the end times, there's always this earthquake, right? In fact, he had told, Lori and the part of their little cult group thought there was going to be an earthquake soon, right? They were all, I need to go to Rexburg, and I guess, I don't know if they thought, well, about whatever happened with the kids, that they were saving them for the earthquake. I don't know. The whole thing is, I tell you, to me, it's like delusions these illusions were mistaken for visions, right? But it was all just delusional, whatever came up in their head. Oh my God. Anyway. Then it goes, so I actually live in Rexburg, and I'm not in their ward or state. My husband's family members are in this state, though. So maybe I should ask them. I can't really speak to that. But I will tell you that my own state president and local leaders, along with other people I know who are close to the case, told me personally that they are more people than we would like to believe that go along with this line of thinking. My state president told me that a lot of people are just trusting in the church, and also, for whatever reason, there are a lot of people who are self-proclaimed scriptorians and super interested in deep doctrine. So this kind of thinking can be tempting for people who are interested in that type of stuff. And unfortunately, there are more of them than we would like to admit, which sucks. Yes, I'm sure that is true. Oh, my legs hurt. I gotta put my leg out. Hang on, guys. She goes. And then the next one, oops, let me fix my little computer here. All right. So it goes, it makes sense within the religion. Joseph, okay, now this is kind of, now remember, this is not my, oops, let me fix my, right there. This is not my thinking or talking. This is this thing I'm reading for Reddit. So I'm not saying this is somebody else's words. It makes sense within religion that Joseph Smith was the original grifter. Right. He was just a dude who claimed he got word from God that men lived with dinosaurs and Jesus was in the Americas and that black people were cursed by God. Okay, again, this is somebody's talking over here. And if you read the Book of Mormon, okay, there's many things about that particular statement, but I'm not going to ever read that. I'm not going to ever bring it back up over here because I don't agree with that kind of thing. Everybody, God made us all equal, and that's just the way it is. There's no need to even say a color. It's just not. We're all the same anyway. So he goes, he said he got a word from God that men lived with dinosaurs and Jesus was in the Americas and that black people were cursed by God, etc. He even had the scriptures transcribed by sticking his head in a hat and dictating what God told him from the inside of the hat. Of course, many people endure, and many people. Oh, that's kind of weird. It kind of blacked out for me. I've never seen that happen before. Okay, is it my little thing over here? I don't know. Anyway, he goes, I hope it doesn't just fall off. He goes, of course, many people who believe that often have delusions of grandeur, and no wonder many people within that church fall for it, right? I know many people don't believe a lot of the original church teachings and stay in for cultural reasons. But my word, do the people who believe it have naive souls? Okay, that's a question too. There's just a lot of controversy. There's a lot of controversy when you're talking about that religion, and it's really, I think the worst thing that happened out of all of this, well, not only the lives taken, but it made the church look so bad. And that's not, it's everything they were doing was completely against the teachings of the church. So, just a lot of controversy right there. Now, this one goes, I find missionary work to be the most damaging thing the church does. There are a lot of research studies about the harm missionary work does in all religions, not just Mormonism. Okay, that's interesting because now I've heard that before too about sending these kids out here to do these things. It's kind of now this is just me talking about it, just me, but it's kind of like when you're sending them out and they're supposed to be preaching the word of God to people, etc. They kind of it's kind of like I'm going to use the word kind of like grifting, because I think, how like the Pentecostal people will bring this little booklet to your door and they'll, want a donation and they'll sell you this booklet, right? Oh, my internet's kind of flashing like that at me. Okay, anyway, I think that's why my little screen kind of blinked a while ago. Okay, so then anyway, let's keep going about that. Throughout history in the third world countries, it's been used as a way to leverage food, water, and medicine against the native population, demanding religion's conversions for basic human needs, essentially the opposite of Jesus' teachings. I know the church still engages in this to some extent. I also know the missionary work is done in large to secure new tithings to the church, which is incredibly cheap with its charitable endeavors compared to its profit for low to middle income families or churchgoers each year. A lot of families live in destitute tithing. They live destitute, they still tithe to the church because they're supposed to. It's like the ultimate grift, right? Now, again, this is not me talking. I'm reading something from somebody else that's talking about these things, okay? So you seem to understand how dangerous this church can be and how prevalent dangerous people are in the church. I completely understand staying for the cultural reasons, but why would you rope unsuspecting people in need into this type of thing is beyond me, especially considering the financial implications when they are pressured to tithe. Like they're expected to tithe. You're expected to give your percentage every week, So then the next one goes, well, here you go. Between Chad and Lori, who do you think is the most diabolical and evil? Ooh, the person says, this is hard to say and something I ask myself often. I'm not in their heads, but here's my personal take. Now, this is kind of interesting too. Lori seems to be a person with absolutely no remorse or empathy for anyone but herself. Then there's Chad. In my opinion, Chad, at least at one point in his life, did have a soul. I think, as I've said in comments on this Reddit before and on this post, that he just craved attention and praise and got caught up in the whirlwind once he started receiving recognition for his books and speaking at these different events. Then, of course, when he met Lori, it all went downhill. I'm just speculating, but in my opinion, I don't believe that Chad would have murdered Tammy unless something like Lori happened to him, which it did. I think if he hadn't met Lori, he probably wouldn't have had to just continue having affairs, or who knows, maybe gotten a divorce. All that being said, Chad is freaking weird. He's obviously an evil and bad dude. But if you were asking who is the most diabolical and evil on the inside, my personal opinion is it leans towards Lori, just because I feel like she's the one with no heart, and he's just someone who let all his morals go out the window for fame, sex, and money. I mean, who could do that to their own children? Chad killing or being involved with the killing of those kids is one thing, because they weren't his. So he could be mentally distancing himself from it. But Lori, killing her own children in such a terrible way, she has to be the most evil in this scenario. So then it goes on. So there's like this, it's like this whole string of things. And this other one says, so do you sense a lot of church members going their own way, like not necessarily in the style of Julie Rowe or Chad, but specifically, but similar mindsets in which the members are doing deep doctoral dives and following their own prompting rather than clinging tightly to the directions from the prophet, apostles, or local leaderships? And this next person says, yes, I would love to elaborate on this, and I will reply in a moment, which I can explain more. Okay. So this one goes, here we go. I love the insights into the community. Thank you for being brave enough to share these little nuggets and help put some missing puzzle pieces together, because there are a lot of missing puzzle pieces here, right? I totally agree with you on Chad and Julie. Then Lori came along and two storms collided, leading to the tragedy. I remember hearing, I think from Melanie G, that Lori wanted a deeper religious connection with Charles. Then boom, the meeting of Chad and Lori. The murder in the name of religion, both equally to blame with Alex as their patsy. And that's exactly right. See, Alex just thought that everything he was saying was right because his sister was over there believing it, so it must be right. And so then you got to remember that Alex goes and he marries the Lima Pastenis. They go to Las Vegas and they get married, right? But then he takes Lima's last name, right? So he was taking her last name. He was trying to distance himself from these people, and he told her, they're going to make me their fall guy. Now, this leads me back to, there is not one bit of proof ever, and I know we will never know that, but I believe, just like Joe Ryan, just like Tammy Daybell, just like Alex, they all had some kind of pink foam. Remember, they talked about this pink foam. I truly believe that they knew of something that they were getting in Mexico, and they were either ingesting it or making sure these other people ingested it, and it took them out. I mean, it caused whatever happened to him to happen. I don't think he died of any kind of natural causes. You will never be able to make me believe that. And of course, we'll never know because they can't do an autopsy. He was cremated, right? Pretty quickly. So anyway. So he goes, we're going to go on this. He goes, I totally agree with you. He goes, then boom, the meeting of Chad and Lori. Then murder in the name of religion, and both equally to blame with Alex as their patsy. I did not ever hear that Rob Woods was LDS, let alone as a bishop. Wow, that was news we didn't know. Golly, I wish my little thing would stay still. It's me. I can't imagine you being so close to this yet so far away. It goes beyond most people's imagination. The extreme views are toxic to our world and have been going on for many centuries, and that's true too. I'll agree with that right there. Hang on. I just wrote a post why leaders from any religion don't investigate extremism more and stand up, speak out, and have a tougher consequences for these people who stray from reality. I can imagine it's just too hard to catch this until it's too late. And then it falls into the hands of the criminal justice system or the taxpayers. And most religious institutions are tax exempt. That's true. This would confuse me. And it goes, oops. Sometime prior to Lori's trial, the LDS Church issued statements that were read in some words about non-participating in litigation unless speaking to your local bishop first. I can't remember the exact phrasing exactly. Was a statement read in your ward, and what went on in your ward when the kids initially went missing? And here's something interesting. Wow, no, that was not read in my ward. But I also don't attend a ward in Rexburg, so maybe that's why. I didn't see any crazy reactions ward-wise, but I was working at the time, and absolutely everyone I worked with and our customers were just blown away. They were billboards all the way to Idaho Falls with the kids' faces on them, and people would even wear shirts with different J.J. Talley things on them. It was truly earth-shattering in our small community. And then the next one says, well, I've been following this case and learning so much. I had no idea there's so many fringe attachments to the LDS. These people were wolves in sheep's clothes. However, it's fascinating how the children stand by his children stand by his ideas. That is fascinating. That just goes to show exactly how brainwashed these little kids are. Anyway, he goes, I am a member and it's been new to me too. Definitely wolves in sheep's clothing. There are many groups that have splintered off from the mainstream LDS faith, but this one concerns me just because of how people have fallen for it. And that's true too. Absolutely true. Now, let's talk about something else for a second. Oops, hang on. I know I need to hold on to this little laptop, right? Let me put it back where it goes. All right, maybe that's better. All right, that's better. So, the next book I'm reading is actually called The Great Gathering, right? So I'm going to kind of let's kind of read the little, hang on a second. Let me get over here too. The little acknowledgments, so we'll kind of figure out what is kind of going on with this book. Now, this book was sold to me as a used book. It was extremely cheap, but as you can tell, the pages have never been even cracked open. I think because of its age, it was sold to me like that. I'm not sure. Let's find out when this book was written. Let's see. So this is the 2007 book. 2007, this book was written. And he goes, this is how it starts out. I want to thank my wife, Tammy, who was always the first person to read my books. Her suggestions have greatly improved each book. Well, I bet they have, because as I've told you guys, I think Tammy wrote the children's books because they were rather nice. Weren't written like these over here. So he goes, I also appreciate the assistance of my children who have been reading my manuscripts. Okay. He goes, Craig Huff and John Huff also deserve mention for their encouragement in the many ways throughout the years and for their assistance with portions of this novel. Oh, this is a novel. The Great Gathering is a novel. Okay. All right. I also greatly appreciate Diane Smith of Eden Bookshop in Independence, Missouri. She has enthusiastically promoted my previous novels and has patiently waited for this new series. This is the new series. All right. I do want to mention the following two books that were helpful in structuring the plot and selecting the locations of this story. Okay. Prophecies, Sign of the Times, Second Coming, Millenniums by Matthew B. Brown. Okay. So apparently he must have did some plagiarism and taken something out of that book too. Sacred Sites, Searching for the Book of Mormon Lands by Joseph L. Allen. All right. Then it goes. And most of all, thank you to everyone who read my previous novels and then asked for more to be written. I hope these new series meets your expectations. All right. Now let's read the author's notes. This is always kind of interesting. This is where they start talking about what this book's kind of about, right? So he goes. I want to emphasize that this series is a work of fiction. Okay. A work of fiction. He's telling you right there, it's a work of fiction. But isn't it odd how that Lori and Chad are over here trying to live the visions of glory and what was in these books he was writing? But it's a work of fiction. All right. So he goes, while these events portrayed in the books are based on scriptural prophecies and the words of the prophets, the specific locations mentioned in the book were selected based on my knowledge and familiarity with these areas rather than a prophecy or account of the targets of these particular cities. The situations in the book are simply meant to serve as representations of what could happen anywhere in the world when the saints are called to gather together by the leaders of the LDS Church. And that's exactly what these books are about. It's always the preppers. It's always the times. It's always, where the buses are going to pick the people up. I mean, it goes from, and the chip and everything else. It's just, okay. Anyway, and then he goes, the events are set in several years in the future, but my intent is to give a sense of security that these major occurrences are still a long way off. Well, geez, Chad, that's not what you told Lori. That's not what you told Zulema. That's not what you told Melanie. Remember, it was going to happen soon, right? All right. These events could easily happen sooner than are portrayed in these novels, and we must prepare ourselves for possible challenges. I want to emphasize, however, that this series is about developing faith and trust in the Lord rather than acting in fear or haste. But the damn book is written all about fear and haste. Exactly, all about fear and haste. You must be ready. You must have a couple years worth of food stored. You must be prepared to take your family and your food storage to the tent cities. When we gather the 144,000, you must be ready to listen to Lori, right? The exalted being. Oh my God. I greatly appreciate the words of Elder Jeffrey R. Holland and the Quorum of the 12 Apostles in July of 2007 issue of Ensign. It's a magazine. In an article entitled, This is the greatest of all dispensations, he wrote. As far as the timing of the triumph, publicly witnessed second coming, and its earth-shaking events, I do not know when that will happen. No one knows, but he claims to know, doesn't he? Absolutely, he claims to know. Remember, he tells them, oh, it's going to be a big earthquake. You need to live in Rexburg because this is where you're going to be safe, right? This is where the tent cities are going to be. This is where Lori and I are coming to get you, right? Oh, my God. Then he goes, the Savior said that even the angels in heaven would not know. See Matthew 24:36, which is a part of the Bible, right? Elder Holland then continues, we should watch for the signs, all right? We should live faithfully as we possibly can, and we should share the gospel with everyone so that the blessings and protections will be available to all. Right there, scare tactics, right there. But we must not be paralyzed just because the event or the events surrounding it are ahead of us somewhere. We cannot stop living life. Indeed, we should live life more fully than we have ever lived it before. And by God, I guess he did. He just decided he was going to live the life he always wanted, and he made sure that happened. All right? All right. I'm grateful for the Elder Holland's counsel on how we should prepare for the future. And I highly recommend you read the entire article, which is available at www.lds.org. All right? The First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 Apostles will always be there to guide us. Don't be misled by people who might cry wolf. Yes, Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow, Melanie Gibb, Zulema, Melanie P. All of you cried wolf. You absolutely did cry wolf. If we follow the words of the President of the Church, who is the Lord's living prophet, we will be prepared for whatever lies ahead. Would you let, Chad, were you not a prophet back then? Were you not already ordained? Did you not already give yourself the title of being the prophet, right? Not yet. I guess not yet. For example, the First Presidency recently released a set of preparedness pamphlets under the title of All is Satisfied. All is safely gathered in. All right, so he's talking about the prepping thing, okay? These pamphlets are intended to motivate and guide the saints to become better prepared for the upcoming world events. Keep in mind that no matter what may come, if you are on the Lord's side of the battle, then is the right place to be. Okay, so in this, in these books, he always talks about end times and, where they're going to gather in Rexburg and all that other kind of stuff. And he also talks about, it's just fear. It's just absolutely fear. Okay. So we'll start reading this one pretty soon. The first chapter is called, the beginning. And so I'll start on that one probably tomorrow or the next day. But first I want to talk to you guys about something that I find it very upsetting. I could not believe oops, there it, no, I hope it didn't cut us off. Hang on just a minute. I'll be back. All right, hang on. Where's my stream? No, don't do that. Here we are. Hang on, let me fix it. Oh no, don't tell me it threw me out. Oh, here we go. Oh, there we go. Jesus, thought it threw me out. Lord. We're going to talk about Chelsea. I think you say Duperon. 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 Now, our child's name was Lila Cassell. She was 8 years old. She beat this child where the child was unrecognizable. Okay? The child laid, and this makes me so upset, guys. It makes me very upset. The child laid in the damn floor for 2 days before she called for help, or before anybody noticed, something was wrong with her, right? She had her in a diaper. The child could not walk. The child was basically, she had so much head trauma that all she could do was effing lay there, all right? This is another monster out there, okay? She's a damn monster. Now, she's already been found guilty, this happened in March of 2024, so it's pretty recent, right? So I'm going to show you a little bit of, here, the worst thing about all of this is she tells everybody, I don't know, an evil spirit made me do it. I was thinking to myself, have you been reading Chad Daybell's books? Is that what's going on here, lady? I don't understand. What do you mean? So let me show y'all this for a minute. Just absolutely. Hang on, I got to put my little banner back down there because we're going to be using stuff from Law and Crime. So we need to give them credit for their work, and we're going to do that. Here we go. Okay, show right there, my tickler. All right, now let me share the screen over here. Hang on. I don't want to remove it. I want to show it. Here we go. All right, share my screen. Come on now. Whoops. I don't want to remove it. I'm going to show it. Oh, wait a minute. I know what I did wrong. Hang on. I got to come over here. I always forget you got to come back over here and then go back over there. It's a big old deal when you're trying to share these screens. All right, hang on. There you go. All right. This is Miss Evil Spirits Made Me Do This Horrifying Thing to Her Daughter. Look at her. This is a beautiful little 8-year-old child. So let me go ahead and play this, and full credit to Law and Crime. They've done a whole little series on it.
Cautionary tale that you really never know what's happening behind closed doors.
A mother accused of beating her 8-year-old daughter to death beyond recognition says evil spirits made her do it.
When you have any child, and especially a child who's killed or allegedly killed because of the actions of a parent, it's just heartbreaking.
When investigators arrived at a Wayne, Michigan home on March 16th, they say 8-year-old Lila Castle had been beaten so severely she was unrecognizable. Prosecutors say the girl had significant bruising and swelling to her head and neck and was unresponsive when emergency crews arrived to the scene. Lila was rushed to the hospital, where she was later pronounced dead. Now, investigators say the person responsible for her murder is 30-year-old Chelsea Renee Duparent, Lila's mother.
Really heartbreaking situation of child abuse. And the law enforcement said it was like the worst case he had ever seen of abuse of a child.
I sat down with legal analyst and attorney Dina Saig-Dahl, who says Lila's injuries were likely the result of repeated abuse.
I mean, if you get to the point where your swelling essentially makes you so unrecognizable, that definitely seems like more than just falling down the stairs. And to be quite frank, it sounds like more than just somebody using their hands. It sounds like maybe somebody using something else that's heavier to cause that kind of swelling. It sounds, for the law enforcement official to say he had never seen anything like that, it's horrible to think of what may have happened to that child, because it does sound like an extreme amount of either repeated punching or somebody was using something, even worse to hit that child.
I looked through the mom's Facebook and social media, and there are so many photos of them together, dressing up for trick-or-treating or going to the first day of school, and they honestly look very happy, like a nice family. So is it a shock then that this normal woman who wouldn't have any prior charges all of a sudden would beat her daughter, abuse her enough that the young girl would be killed?
We have seen so many cases like this, Sierra, on the network where, and this is why it's always so, people should be careful about how somebody presents themselves in the world, because people often are very good at showing one side of themselves to the world and a whole other, behind closed doors. And we see that quite a bit in domestic violence cases, where somebody may say, oh, I would never have assumed, guessed that man was doing that to that woman. Or in cases of children, especially because children are so vulnerable, they usually would have only the parent to look to for help. And then when the parent is doing this, it's very difficult. There's still, allegations of this. We don't know. Was this a continuing pattern? Had she abused this child before? But the fact that it was so severe, you would think that it probably wasn't the first time. And yeah, people are good. People who are abused are good at covering up. Abusers are good at covering up. And so it's a cautionary tale that you really never know what's happening behind closed doors.
Michigan officials have pinpointed Wednesday, March 13th as the day Lila was beaten, but it's still unclear whether her mother used some sort of objects during the abuse. After that, prosecutors said Chelsea Duperron put her daughter in a bed and went to the store where she bought Vaseline, liquor for herself, and diapers for Lila because the girl was so weak she couldn't even use the bathroom. I mean, she knew that her child couldn't physically get up to go to the bathroom, so she got these diapers. Is that something that prosecutors would consider?
The fact that she got that, I mean, just a horrible detail because it shows that the mother was aware of the situation her child was in, this kind of tragic situation her child is that couldn't even get up. That's how injured she was, and the mother knew that.
It wasn't until 3 days after Lila was first beaten that
3
an
days, not
emergency
2 days,
call was
right?
made. If 911 had been called earlier, if the girl hadn't just been in her bed for these 3 days, she could have been saved. Is that something that could factor into the case as it moves forward?
It would factor into the case maybe in terms of, was there somebody else in the house that could have called 911? Or did somebody stop by during those, I think it was 3 days between the time they think that she was abused to the time that she died? Was there anybody else who knew that this child was injured and didn't call 911? So I think we may see more charges if that's the case. And that's where the failure to call 911 is so would come into play. Perhaps if she had called 911 earlier, well, if she had called 911 and the child had been saved, she wouldn't be facing murder charges for one thing, right? And even if she had called 911 and the child had been saved, it's possible that the prosecutors would have been willing to charge her with a lesser crime, or certainly during sentencing, the fact that she had tried to save her child could have come in. But as you know,
all right, then we have to go over and talk from it. So, I mean, imagine that. So she beats her like this. Then she gets up and goes to the damn liquor store and gets liquor. And then wants to claim, I guess an evil spirit made me do that. I don't understand what in the world. But I'm going to tell you, okay, so she actually pled guilty to second-degree murder in connection with this child's death, right? This little 8-year-old child. I want to read you a little bit about something that I found over here in Mom accused of fatally beating daughter blames a mystery woman. At first, she blames a mystery woman. Wow. Chelsea Duperron allegedly beat her 8-year-old daughter and left her in a diaper, refusing to get her medical treatment. Okay? So this happened over in Wayne, Michigan. And so it goes, her name is Chelsea Renee Duperron. She's 30 years old, and she's charged with felony murder and first-degree child abuse in the death of Lila Cassell. On March 16th, she called 911 to report Cassell had stopped breathing. When police arrived to the home, and of course, where this happened in Wayne, Michigan, it was clear the child had been assaulted. The police noted severe swelling and bruising to Cassell's head and face and neck. Police said Duperron first claimed her daughter fell down the stairs, but then her stories began to change. As usual, they always do, don't they? Duperron reportedly told her live-in boyfriend 2 days earlier that a ghost or spirit assaulted her daughter. The boyfriend is not Cassell's father. Why didn't he say anything? What in the hell, right? The boyfriend said Cassell appeared to be in a distress, but he figured it was her mother's responsibility to get medical attention. It was her mother's responsibility to get medical attention for this child. What about you, sir? What about you? When talking to police further, Duperron talked about bad spirits and a mystery woman who appeared in her basement and assaulted Cassell days earlier. Police said Cassell was wearing a diaper, and the Duperron said it was because it was difficult for her daughter to get to the bathroom after she was injured, so she thought wearing a diaper would just be easier. At one point, Michigan State Police obtained evidence showing Duperron going to the store where she purchased hang on a minute, it just jumped out of the way, the diapers, Vaseline, and some liquor, right? Now, it had been alleged that Duperron has problems with alcohol, and relatives said she would drink and drive with her daughter in the car, according to the police. Detectives said Duperron eventually admitted to hitting Cassell and not getting her any medical attention because she thought her condition was improving. Well, she couldn't walk to the bathroom. She couldn't get up and move around, but she was improving, right? Because she just laid there. The medical examiner indicated that Cassell died. Hang on a minute. My little thing is just jumping out of the way here. Let me get back over here where it was. That Cassell died from blunt force trauma to the head. A defense attorney appointed to Dupron for her arraignment said that she was not the only person in the home and asked that she undergo a psychological examination while in jail. Oh, going to bring out this other person. Are we already planning it? Are we, Mr. Defense? Wayne County Assistant Prosecutor Aaron Wilmus said that it just jumped out. That said sheer brutality of what happened to Cassell was unlike anything she's ever seen in her years of handling child abuse cases. Wilmus also said, based on conversations with the medical examiner, if Dupron had gotten her daughter medical attention the day of the assault, she could have maybe been saved. A judge ordered Dupron to be held without bond, and she should never be allowed to bond out. Hell no. I mean, it's just like the other guy who killed those 4 people. He's not getting bonded out ever either. That's not going to happen, you know. There's some more, but there's a whole series about this particular case on law and crime, and it's very interesting. And I wanted to spend a little time talking about this case as well and going over it because it's just, you got to wonder. Okay, we've got all these crazy things going on. We've got Lori and Chad over here and Julie Rowe and these delusions of whatever they got going on. And we got this mother over here that's blaming it on some evil spirit that just came into her home and was in the basement and did that. And then you've got, where do these people come from? Why? Look at all these children. What in the damn hell? Are you going to tell me that Jack and Lily, just like Sebastian Poof, a ninja, they just ran? I mean, they're just gone like that? No, that's not what happened to them. I'm sick of hearing it. I'm sick of hearing all of that. It makes me so ill to watch that happen. I just can't believe that here we are, however long past all of this, and it's the same thing. Why is it happening? I can give you the information. Hang on a minute. I was going to tell y'all where she's currently being housed in the prison over there, in case anybody wants to write her a letter or whatever, But here we go. Let's read a little bit about this other part over here. Now, this is from, I like to read Reddit. There's a lot of information on here. So, mom admitted guilt in 8-year-old daughter's death, faces sentencing, right? A Michigan mother faces sentencing Monday after pleading guilty to second-degree murder in connection with the death of her daughter. Chelsea Dupron, 30, was initially charged with felony murder and first-degree child abuse in March of 2024. After Wayne County officers found Lila Cassell unresponsive. The officers had been dispatched to Dupron's home following reports of a child in distress. They reported finding Lila unresponsive in her bed wearing just a diaper. In court documents, officers described the little girl's condition as severe, noting that significant swelling to her face and head and neck rendered her nearly unrecognizable. Lila was rushed to the hospital where she was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. According to the prosecutor, an autopsy revealed that Lila had died as a result of massive blunt force trauma to the face and head. Dupron initially told them that she didn't call for help sooner because, of course, she said she was getting better, right? She suggested her daughter had fallen down the stairs. We heard that as well, but then changed her account to officers as, they started questioning. Of course, she couldn't keep up with that. She had to give a different story. They always do have to give a different story, don't they? Officers reported that Dupre mentioned bad spirits during the questioning and claimed that a woman had appeared out of nowhere. They also noticed that Dupron's own hands appeared to be swollen and bruised. Prosecutors believe the assault on Lila occurred 3 days prior to her hospitalization. Dupron admitted to putting the diaper on her daughter after the incident because Lila was unable to get up and go to the bathroom on her own. Wow, yeah, that's right. She couldn't, could she, Mom? She had so much head trauma. I'm sure she had, oh my God. Oh. DuPont's boyfriend, who was present during the events leading to Lila's death, was not charged. He acknowledged he recognized the girl was in distress, but again felt like it was responsibility of the mother. He should have been charged. He should have been charged for not reporting the crime. Now that's another look. Jen Soto's not getting charged either, right? Why didn't he report the crime? The child might have been able to be saved. I can't believe that a grown-ass man would be living in a house like that with these people and let this child lay in the bed and freaking die like that. Unbelievable. DuPont changed her plea from not guilty to felony murder guilty of second degree. Because Michigan judges have broad sentencing discretion, DuPont faces a maximum sentence of life without the possibility of parole. Now, and that's exactly what she should have gotten. It's utterly heartbreaking as it makes my blood boil. I would have given anything in this world, literally. Okay, hang on a minute. This is kind of some other people just kind of talking about it. Given anything in the world, literally anything, to have another child. And these monsters are out there having kids and choose to starve, beat, and neglect them to death. I can't understand why these cases would be. And the person goes next and goes, I can understand why these cases would be so upsetting for you. And then another one goes, an 8-year-old in diapers, that's a big red flag, right? Because she could not get up and go to the bathroom on her own. This lady says, I live in Wayne, and somebody that actually lives in that city. I live here and never knew this even happened. Did they not report it? I mean, was it not in the news? Were they just hiding it? Or were they just like scraping it under the rug? What happened here? This is so sad, and it makes me so mad. I would have given anything, including my own life, for my child to be here. He was hit and died riding his bicycle. And here, hang on. He's trying to move on. And here, this monster took her child's life. Why doesn't any of these news or police say exactly what happened? I understand she beat her, but why? I'm not saying there's any justification, but I'm just trying to get the facts right. Somebody please explain to me, was she drunk when she did this? Is that what her mother's claiming because she said, she has an alcohol problem? They all knew she had the alcohol problem, but the child was still in the home with her? My God. And then here's the next one. Geez, dude, you could have called the cops. You must have known your girlfriend's kids was in horrible shape. He's probably a piece of shit himself. Wow, this guy tells it like it is. He goes, he's probably a piece of shit himself, I'm guessing, because someone who's compassionate and a good person wouldn't just sit there and watch a child die. And then it goes, Wayne, Michigan court, a Michigan mother was sentenced to 50 years in prison. She gets 50 years after pleading guilty to second-degree murder and child abuse in connection with the death of her daughter. And then it goes, the next one goes, why was she beaten to death? I'll tell you why. Mom found out the boyfriend was sexually abusing her and she blamed her daughter instead of the boyfriend. And that this is somebody just talking. I don't know that this is true or not true. It's somebody on Reddit just saying, you know what, maybe this is what happened here. And, could have been. I don't know. We don't know the answers. And I bet, she goes, she chose a pedophile over her daughter. I bet, and that is so sad. Now, but here's the thing that's remarkable about that. Several other people in this string had the same kind of comments. So what is it about young mothers with daughters, and the first thing that comes to the mind when something happens to the daughter is the pedophile boyfriend, right? It always comes out, doesn't it? I had the same thought. That's what I've been asking myself. Wow, what happened? Then she got to the point of beating her up to death? I feel like she's covering up for him. Why haven't they charged him for not rendering aid? Can't they do that, knowing that she had been beaten, and couldn't he report the abuse? I don't understand or get it. Yes, why was he not charged with something? He neglected to report a child dying in her bedroom after her mother beat her until she was not recognizable. What in the Sam freaking hell is that about? My God, people. Well, listen to this one. Okay, hang on a minute. We got to come back over here. She goes, the next one goes, I've been seeing, okay. He goes, hey, I got to move over to this other one. My phone is kind of doing this weird thing. It's kind of jumping a little bit, Let me go to the next one. Oh gosh, I got to come back over to this one. I mean, it's just kind of, oh no, please don't tell me my internet is, Did my internet just die? I hope not. That might be what's going on here. I've been noticing my internet was kind of going in and out, and I'm hoping that my live has just been on and not been just going in and out for you guys, because if that's what's going on, I don't know. It's kind of upsetting, but all I can do at that point is just load it up tomorrow and or later today. That'll be fine too. It's fine, whatever. So, know how many? Okay. Well, another thing, I don't know if y'all know about this or not, but in the Jack and the Lily case, I'm just going to talk about this one for just a minute. But they were talking about, these kids, and she called them in sick for school. But there was somebody that came on, and they actually found out exactly how many days of school both kids had missed from the month before, and it was an amazing 16 and 12 or something like that. These kids were absent from school all the time. And why were they absent from school all the time? What's going on over there, right? I want to know. In fact, I'm going to look that up and see if I can find it right now. Hang on a minute. Lily and Jack. Hang on a minute. I'm going to look it up right now. Lily and Jack, how many days absent? Because it was talked about, and I was really shocked by that. Have been absent. Whoops. How many days? One of the teachers had told somebody, I believe, how many days. So, okay. Let me see where it began. They talked about for hours. They became inseparable. Supporting relationship blossomed. Okay. So this is going on. I'm trying to figure out, where did we see this at? Because I was really shocked by this. And, I don't want to say the wrong amount of number, but it was quite a lot of them. I couldn't believe it. And you know what else I want to know about, guys? Now listen, and this is just me ranting over here about something else. But have you noticed how many BS AI generated stories there are out there on Lily and Jack? It's every damn day. Little AI generated stories all over the place, Whoops, hang on a minute. Anyway, it's stuff like, they've arrested Darren, they did this. It's all, none of it's true. There's been not one arrest. They don't know where these kids are. And yes, people have stopped talking. Darren Geddes I don't know if he's a suspect or not, but there's all these little AI generated stories all over saying all this BS. None of it's true. And here's the thing I'm going to tell you. I think what would stop a lot of this is if people, when they read this, they would go, boy, that's not true. There's no facts in there. We need to report this. Because the more and more these little AI generated stories are out there, and people are listening to this and listening to that, they're getting all confused, and this misinformation is just being spread around more and more and more, until the fact where people are like, I don't even know what's going on in that case, because there's been so much misinformation put out there. Think about that, folks. Just think about it. That's all I'm going to ask, is that you think about that, because it's got to stop. This has to stop. Every time I turn around, I'm seeing it. I can't stand it, Anyway, so and that's all I want to talk about tonight. I also know I need to finish reading chapters. I need to come back and finish reading chapter 19 and 20 of Evading Babylon. But really, in the long run of things, it really doesn't matter, because the book is about exactly what all these books are about. It's the same old thing with Chad Daybell. And let me kind of look at something. I'm going to look at one little thing over here, see if I can find. Let me just thumb through here for just a second, see if there's anything that just jumps out at me and says, oh, well, they were preparing for the second coming right here, and, then this happened, and then that happened. Okay, let me just look over here for a second. You know what else is another fascinating thing? And I know I've kind of touched on this one before too, but that the Aaronic priesthood, which is also another Chad Daybell book. Now, I need to go back and bring part of that one back out too. Sorry. There's some interesting facts in there, and that is where, I don't know, I need to bring that one back out too. I was using it when I was comparing Chad Daybell to Charles Manson, because they are cult leaders, both of them. Charles Manson's was not really developed from a religious background. Something maybe he made up himself. Well, it's the same thing, because Chad made up his own religion, and Charles Manson, I guess, used his own type of rhetoric that he considered religion, I guess. Same thing, but but anyway, I was using that book when I was doing that comparison, and then for some reason, I don't know why, but something happened, and YouTube just did not like that comparison story. And so I got a tiny little strike on that. And I couldn't figure out why. It's got a copyright strike. I don't know if it was the book. I don't know if it's about Charles Manson, whatever. So the whole thing got taken down. So what I decided to do about that is I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it under a different, I'm not just going to be straightforward. I'm just going to do it differently where it's, anyway, I figured out how to make sure where I won't get the copyright strike when I talk about these comparisons. Because another thing I want to do is compare Rowe Daybell to Letitia Stouch. They're both social fucking paths. 100%. And I know that's a bad word, and I shouldn't have said that, but it's true. That's what they are. They're just sociopaths. Anyway, I think my internet is just going in and out, and it's causing my live to not show up. So I'm going to look over here and see if that is what happened, because it's just like I'm getting this little tiny. Anyway, let me check it right quick on here. I might just have to get off and we'll just call it a day, and I'll just put it back out there tomorrow. It's not, or later on today, actually. Okay, let me see if I do managing my, let me see if it's even, I don't even know if it's showing up right. Okay, that was from yesterday. So let me go over here and see if it's showing up. Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's even showing up because of my internet going in and out. That is exactly why I think I'm seeing the little thing go like this, and then I've lost my feed, and then it's come back, and just little internet problems over here today, and I don't know why, but I'll take care of it, and I'll see y'all later today. We'll talk about it later. I'm gonna go ahead and get this loaded up so you can listen to it or watch it whenever you feel like it, whenever you want to, because I don't think you can see it right now, because when I'm looking on the YouTube, I don't see it right now. Anyway, you all have go get some rest. I'll talk to you later. Bye guys. Thanks for coming by. Bye.